Oh, welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. You also figured out that, well, if I'm doing the show and the show's going on this late, then chances are things went horribly awry. And boy, oh boy, did they. But on a positive note, if you look behind me, you should be able to see the new and improved studio. Many of you, I think, at this point know me well enough to know that I'm a little bit psychotic, and I'm certainly a perfectionist, despite the fact that things never start on time. I am a perfectionist. And so I went through a very long process where I was trying to figure out, all right, I have my laser level. I had my tape measure. I had my stud finder, which of course, stud detected right here. All right, awful. I had my regular level. I had all my stuff ready to go. And then at some point I went, why am I going to try to line everything up perfectly? Then as soon as one thing gets out of whack, the whole thing's going to look like crapazoid. And so I took a second, I thought about it, I reflected, and I said, gallery wall. My wife kept saying gallery wall. And I said, all right, well, I'll give the gallery wall a shot. And so I tried my damnedest to try to come up with something that looked even remotely okay. Now, part of it's blocked out. Like you can't see over here, we have the Nick Foles. There it is, Nick Foles. Super Bowl poster. We have the Allen Iverson NBA All-Star Game post. Front page is back here. We've got an old Philadelphia Union bachelor party plaque. We've got Gritties over here. I got the Berlin Wall behind me from my time studying abroad. I got the Eagles Super Bowl, the most recent Super Bowl. We got Super Bowl 52 up here as well. And then over here, we have that poster that I just love. For whatever reason, I love the throwback. Michael Jordan gets cut off right now by the logo, but we're just going to have to deal with it for now. So, anyway, I thought that after a while, I was like, we're 116 episodes into this show. It's no longer just like 50 people check it out. The numbers have been successful and have been going up in recent weeks. And the channel, I think, is at like over 1,200 subscribers now. So I'm feeling like, we're going to take a little bit here. And we're just going to make it look a little bit nicer. So thanks for bearing with me. I'm very excited about it. I actually would say it doesn't look half bad. Now, I do want to get out to the comments because we have a lot to get into today, including, but not limited to, the Philadelphia Flyers, I think, absolutely nailed the draft. And as many of you know, I tend to be a little bit, I don't want to say negative. Some people like to label me as negative. I label it as realistic. But there are a lot of people, for whatever reason, that have some issues sometimes with my takes on the Philadelphia Flyers and how they do. And so I certainly am not an apologist, but I think they nailed the draft. We're going to get there in a bit. We'll also touch at least briefly on Ranger Suarez just being an absolute force. And a guy that, man, you might lose in free agency. This starting rotation continues to be incredible without Aaron Nola. Just an incredible effort, winning 2 out of 3 against the Braves. And you have to sit back and go, how the hell can a rotation be this good, arguably as good or better than the 2011 rotation, the 4 aces and average Joe Blanton? How could they possibly be better than that? And yet it kind of feels like they are. Oh, and by the way, Max Kepler felt as though he's been lied to and feels as though his role with the team was misrepresented from free agency until now. So we're going to get to all of that. But before we do, we're going to go out really quickly to the comments because I love and appreciate the comments section here on The Russ Joy Show. By the way, you can find this over on YouTube, The Russ Joy Show. You can find it on the Joy Media account over on YouTube as well. You can find it on the respective Facebook pages. You can also interact over on X on my handle, @JoyOnBroad, which you can see at the bottom. And I might pull up, I could do it. I'll pull up the comments here. We'll fill in this area of the screen with the comments as they come in. All the ones that are already in will not populate, but from now until the end of the show, those will populate. If you send a super chat over, you'll jump the line and I'll get to your question first. And it should also appear there and we'll blow it up big time. Okay. Zacho says, oh yes, missed you guys' draft coverage last week since I was up in Maine on vacation. Happy to be back and see you take on the draft this year. This is the first time I've ever gotten to cover a draft. I have never really wanted to cover the NHL draft in the past. Like, truthfully, I've never really seen the point. There's also like the expense part of it. Like, I don't want to front the cost of having to go wherever the hell we go, right? Wherever the draft ends up being. This is the first year that obviously they did the decentralized draft. The owners wanted it. It was a failure. I would argue the decentralized format of the draft was the biggest clunker, especially coming off a year where you took drafts in general by storm, rolling things out at the Sphere. And it's crazy because it's almost like hockey shooting itself in the foot. We'll get there in a little bit. I want to elaborate on it. But it did give us the opportunity to go down to the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, where we were steps away from the Flyers War Room. And we'll talk about some of the things that came out of that show. So, but thanks for finding us, Zach. Zacho also says, sucks we couldn't grab a Desnoyers or Frondel, but Martone and the amount of size and high compete players we grabbed this year will really shape the organization moving forward, staying optimistic. If you came away from the weekend feeling anything but optimistic, I think you kind of have to level set and you kind of have to check yourself before you wreck yourself. We'll get there in a little bit as well. Amadeo says, remember, hockey fans, Gary Bettman says no state taxes are an issue when it comes to free agency. Yeah, sure. Yeah, not true. Zacho also asks, Shabanov season yet? LOL. No. Not yet. Could be. Could be very soon. Oh, look at this. Alex Whiteleather hit me right here in the feels. Says, settling in for the show with an app sampler from Sheets. Life is good. It's funny. I did this whole thing last week. I blogged about the fact that Sheets got the approval from Limerick Township. They're going to be building right across Ridge Pike from a Wawa. And I did a whole thing, and you can find it on the YouTube channel, where I glowingly reviewed Sheets. And I was realistic about Sheets versus Wawa. There are some things that each do better than the other, and it's nice to be across the street from one another. Well, my wife put out a TikTok. Now, after all the years that I've been doing Philly sports stuff, I've got like whatever my following is. I think on Twitter, it's like, it's not 8,000, like 7,500 maybe, somewhere around there. And then you add in like Instagram and all the other crap, and like maybe I'm at like 8,000, 9,000 total followers, whatever, right? My wife, like a year ago, put out a video, and it was our daughter talking, and it picked up like 16 million views on TikTok. So my wife has like 33,000 followers on TikTok, which is great. She filmed me without me knowing it as I'm like standing there trying to find the Limerick Township video, right? Like to see if they got the approval. And the comments of her TikTok video were people going, wait a second, you live in Wawa country, your husband likes Sheets, but he's wearing a Buc-ee's hoodie. Is he a connoisseur of the gas station food? And the answer is yes. Well, you can include Royal Farms in that. I've been to Rutter's once. You're not going to catch me eating 7-Eleven, no offense. But I guess I am a connoisseur of the gas stations. But anyway, Alex, you got to let me know in the comments what's in the sampler. Did you go mozzarella sticks? Did you go fried mac and cheese bites, jalapeno poppers? You got to let me know. Zach O says, waiting on the Sheets and Russ Joy Show collab. It better happen. It should happen. Yukon says, I'm here. You can start now. I'm here. Also says, Zegras makes an all-star this year. That would be pretty wild. It could happen. It could happen. We'll talk about Zegras in a little bit. Jay Grebby is here over on YouTube. Says, good afternoon, Russell and Russettes. Hello. Hello, Jay. Jay also says, does Ekblad re-signing in Florida make Risto a potential attractive trade chip? I know he's hurt, but only supposed to miss the start of the year. Maybe a team will overpay. Well, kind of sucks. All right, so let's start there. You know, since we last spoke, we knew Sam Bennett was going to stay in Florida. We knew there was a really good chance that John Tavares was going to remain in Toronto. And not only did he remain there, he took like a massive pay cut, like a 50% pay cut. And now you find that Ekblad is re-signing. Now, Elliot Friedman put out, we'll throw it up here on the screen really quick, but I almost want to throw up on the screen when I see the terms of the deal. But Friedman is saying that apparently it's going to be around 8 years, $6.1 million per year. Now, I could look at this realistically and say, would I have wanted to give Ekblad an 8-year deal? Absolutely not. No, I don't think the back half of that contract is going to age very well. But the front half of it at $6 million, that could be okay. Now, why would Florida sign Ekblad to an 8-year deal right now? Well, remember, the CBA changes that are going to go into effect start not this upcoming season, 25-26. They'll start the 26-27 season. You'll only be able to re-sign your own players to a 7-year max. So if you're looking at it and you're saying, all right, we know that the cap is going to go up, you're effectively saying we're fine having some of the eventual cap increase get eaten up by a contract that might not age well for the sake of having a little bit of flexibility here as you pursue a three-peat. And so for Florida, it's an absolute no-brainer. It is a brilliant signing. It helps to continue to fortify that blue line. It puts them back in position where you're like, man, can they really re-sign both Bennett and Ekblad? Can they get both of those guys back in? And the answer now is yes. And in fact, Bennett, what he signed for wasn't a bad signing, but man, you kind of sit back and go, he definitely could have gotten more elsewhere. Remember, for a long time, people thought, oh, Toronto's going to get in there for a $10 million per year deal. Could it happen? It is an advantage. $8 million a year for Bennett might be a little bit on the higher side, but he would have gotten double digits AAV if he had gone elsewhere in the league. And there is no doubt. Gary Bettman can say whatever he wants, but there is absolutely no doubt in my mind or any rational hockey fan's mind that the no state tax thing really does help. It really does help kind of offset those additional earnings that you could pick up in another market. So now you have Bennett back, Ekblad back. Florida very much looks like, again, if not the team to beat, then pretty damn close. I don't remember if Marchand has agreed to anything yet, but the thought is that good chance he'll try to re-up there. Why would you not want to go for back-to-back cups if you're him? Help the team win 3 straight. Absolutely wild stuff. Now, back to Jay's question about, does that change anything on the Risto market? I'm not sure that it changes a lot for the Risto market because, again, he was injured. He's going to miss the start of the season. I've been saying this for a while. The Flyers are only going to move off of Rasmus Ristolainen if they believe they have another bigger defenseman in the pipeline or readily available to take his spot in the lineup because they don't want to be as small as they were last year. Now, there have been rumors floating out there that Cam York may be close to signing some version of a deal. I would expect a bridge. I can't imagine it's going to be a longer-term deal, although he's buddies with Drysdale, who's here for a few years. He's buddies with Trevor Zegras, who was just brought in, who presumably is going to play well as a center and get a nice contract in restricted free agency next offseason. So if you're Cam York, did the calculus change? Did one of your friends in Zegras coming in here, did that change things? Does maybe his ask come down a little bit? Is he willing to extend out so that it's a lower AAV? We'll find out soon. I've just said all along, I thought that York is probably the most expendable guy defensively because Drysdale's here. I think they really like Emile Andre. They don't have a ton of size on the blue line. Are they going to want to actively ship out Cam York now? Probably not. I would assume that they are now going to re-sign him, and especially with Risto missing time, the last thing you want is to totally upend your defensive core. Will it pay dividends? Could the Flyers end up getting York on a relatively affordable deal and then ultimately look brilliant in the contract that they ultimately sign him to? They could. Now, if you're York, you could do what Cates did not that long ago. Take a shortish term deal, take a 3 or 4 year deal with the understanding that the cap is supposed to go up exponentially 2 seasons from now. And that's when you are going to be able to really cash in a big way. Maybe you're only taking $6 million a year or $5.5 million a year now for 3 or 4 years with the belief that all right, I'm not going to suck. I'm actually going to get better. And if I do, when this bridge deal's up, I could make $9, $10 million a year. Do you do that instead of squawking for 6.5 or 7? I would think so. Not that it's going to matter, but if York wanted 6.5 or 7 million, and then you look at Ekblad and you go, well, homeboy just signed for 6. It's not a comparable situation, but it does kind of set in some way a little bit of the market in free agency. Let's see. Landros says Flyers got one of the top 3 talents in the draft. No one saw any of the other top centers as first-line talents. Martone is that. I want to get into this draft. I really do. Let me just double-check. Oh, man, we did have a lot of comments come in. Okay. I'm going to do my damnedest here really quick to get through as many of these, and I want to go all in on the Martone conversation. By the way, Greg over on X, who knew to click the video first to go in old Periscope mode and then send over comments, says, wow, hometown discount for Ekblad, and says, cap's going way up. This will be a bargain in 4 years. Correct. All right, let me get through as many of these as I can. Jay Grubby says, Peltier not qualified. I haven't seen it. Let's see. I assume that you're telling the truth. I haven't actually looked. Yeah, Anthony DeMarco put out there, and so did Kevin Kurtz, that it sounds like they are not qualifying Jacob Peltier. He is an RFA, but I think this kind of gives you an idea of what is to come. Now, what would be really interesting is when you're looking at the depth chart on this team, and I mentioned this last week, and I mentioned it on our show, on the Snow the Goalie Draft Day show, right? I did mention this at the time. While most people think the Flyers could look to add depth at center, although the center market isn't particularly great right now, I did kind of float out the idea that, like, could you see them get in on like a Nikolai Ehlers? Could you get in, or Ehlers? I call him Ehlers, but it could be Ehlers. Do you get in on him? Do you get in on a guy like Brock Besser, who scored 40 goals 2 seasons ago for Rick Tocchet? If you think that it could help your team, right? Like, if the idea here is, all right, Trevor Zegras is here. We want to make sure that we're giving him the ability to kind of mix and match his line mates, and you still don't know what Sean Couturier is going to be right now. Rick Tocchet did come on the show and said that he thinks that Couturier is going to bounce back in a big way. He's really excited to coach Zegras. That's a good sign. He called out Cates, said Cates' film really popped. All that's great. I wouldn't be surprised if they looked at bringing in a winger. Sure, like, bring in a winger to help. He also spoke pretty glowingly of Owen Tippett and the belief that Tippett's going to be able to come back and turn things around, be more consistent. So you're going to add, like, all right, let's think about the wings now, right? You have Mishkov and Konechny are your top two, some way, shape, or form. By the way, just historically, a lot of right wings on the team. Somebody's going to have to play on their off wing. It's okay. So you have Mishkov, you have Konechny, you have Tippett, you have Forster, you've got Brink. Now, where would a Peltier have found himself? Like, I'm not exactly sure that he would have been anything more than a fourth liner. Perhaps they think that somebody internally could take that spot. And if that's the case, good on him. Certainly not a bad thing. Are you going to give one of the guys from the Phantoms an actual look? Could Porter Martone get an actual look? I don't think so, but anything could happen. We'll get there in a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if the Flyers looked at getting a wing. I really wouldn't. I mean, anything could happen between now, the start of free agency, a week or two into free agency, if somebody's holding out and waiting for a certain, to get that bag and it doesn't come, and then you start renegotiating. I wouldn't be shocked if they looked at a veteran winger. If they do, I would hope it's going to be like a top 6 winger, which maybe allows you to take a little bit of the pressure off of Bobby Brink, for example, having to somehow like work his way into being a top 6 forward, which I don't think he is right now. Will he grow into that? I don't know. It takes a lot of pressure off of Tyson Forster. He also then maybe doesn't have to be a top 6 winger. Maybe it gives you the ability to kind of jostle where Tippett's at in the lineup. I wouldn't be surprised. And they do have cap space, and they obviously have an abundance of cap space next year, which both Dan Hilferty and Rick Tocchet talked about in length on the Snow the Goalie draft show, which you can find over on the Snow the Goalie channel and in your podcast feed. There are just so many things that this team is now going to be able to do. And that addition of Zegras really did kind of change the calculus. It changed it on draft day. And I think it could actually sort of change their outlook in free agency as well. We'll get there in a little bit when I can. Okay. Let's see. Holy crap, there's a lot of comments. Okay, let's get to as many as possible. Jay also complimenting the backdrop. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. Let's see. Connor says you should put the 2 Super Bowl newspapers next to each other. Huge miss here, Russ. Well, I was going to, but I have, hold on, this one is Super Bowl 59. This is Super Bowl 52. So we do have them right next to each other. And I also liked breaking up a lot of the verticals and the horizontals. So, doing what we can here. Let's see. Tony Louis says A+ on the coverage over the week. Oh, A+ on the coverage over the weekend at Snow the Goalie. You guys were on fire. I might not have liked the Nesbitt pick, but I'm just a fat ass on a sofa, and Briere probably knows more than me. I got to tell you, this is the thing about Nesbitt, right? We all knew that Nesbitt was going to be a guy that, like, you came out of the draft kind of wondering, was that the right pick for the Flyers? How are the fans going to react to him? And I do want to just take a second here, because some of you know I like to pat myself on the back when I'm right. Now, in this case, I was slightly wrong, but I did manifest something, right? I have been saying on this show, and Snow the Goalie, but I've been saying on this show for like going on 2 months that Roger McQueen was going to fall into the early teens, and Danny Briere has to go, big balls, Danny, and he's got to put the assets together and move up from 22 to like 12 or 13. Like, I swear I have been saying that for 2 months. It might even be longer, right? And so you get to draft night. They get Martone, and then, which we'll talk about in a bit. And then as things are kind of unfolding, I'm like, yo, McQueen's falling. How far is he going to fall? Now, we had Mark Gregg, who's one of the Flyers scouts, on that show as well, where he kind of gave like the wink and the nudge that like Martone could be the guy, but then also said that, you know, like the hypothetically, I said like, we won't attach McQueen's name to it, but a guy who like could have been a number 1 overall pick or something, and you have the back issues and injuries, and he's like, well, you know, you could slide a few spots, but he kind of gave the impression like a guy of that talent isn't going to fall to like 16, right? So McQueen goes to Anaheim at 10, which was essentially the equivalent of like last year when the Canadiens had Celine Dion come out and announce Ivan Demidov. Like, it gutted me, right? Because I was out on a date on vacation with my wife at our favorite burger place in the Outer Banks, and I see Celine Dion come out, and I know that the Habs really were pissed off they missed out on Mishkov, and I knew they were going to take Demidov, and I was like, please don't make me hate Celine Dion. I love Celine Dion. Don't make me hate her. And I still don't hate her, but it did upset me. And so I was like, well, of course, Anaheim is going to have to take McQueen, and they did. So I was sad because there goes your 6'5" center. And then the Flyers trade up. They make that trade where it was a pick from the Rangers to the Penguins and then to the Flyers at 12. And they get a 6'5" center. So while I wasn't exactly right about McQueen, they did end up with a young 6'5" center, which proves that like my manifesting these things into the universe sometimes is a little bit off. But I would say 6'5" center is still a 6'5" center. I haven't watched a lot of film on Nesbitt, but I can tell you that this dude won a lot of people over almost immediately because he came on the Snow the Goalie Draft Day show. And I just want you to hear, in case you somehow missed it, I want you to hear what Nesbitt had to say about what he did know about Philadelphia and about being a Philadelphia Flyer.
But Philadelphia is the better Pennsylvania team out of them in Pittsburgh, so I'm super excited about that. But no, that's really all.
So he said the Flyers. Philadelphia is the better Pennsylvania team. Now, did he say that because Pittsburgh gave the pick away and came to the Flyers? Listen, that's almost like the Bryce Harper school of pandering, and you have to love it. And here's the thing about Nesbitt. A lot of people got in their feelings. A lot of people got worked up.
He was projected to be in the 20s. He was projected to be in the 20s.
I saw people say that, like, they had him in their 30s on their own big boards. And I was like, listen, I mean this respectfully, right? Some people overvalue their own input into where they rank players. Some people will watch a little bit of film on a player, and then they will still essentially try to sell themselves as a draft expert. You guys know I do not do that. I'm not sitting down watching Jack Nesbitt all season. I was not sitting down watching Porter Martone every game. So I'm not going to tell you that like I had some great idea or some kind of like otherworldly insight. What I do know is he's a huge body. And what the Flyers came out and said after the fact is that they were pretty confident that he could have gone at 13 or 15. And so while I think it was it Pierre LeBrun or was Bob McKenzie? One of them had Nesbitt at like number 15 or 16 in their final draft guide. And I was like, okay, just take a second here. Like, let's try to be a little bit rational. If Jack Nesbitt was like the 15th or 16th best player on a highly respected pundits list, right? And you traded up from 22 to 12 to get him, all right, you've technically taken him like 3 or 4 spots earlier than the pundit. But you have to keep in mind that McQueen was off the board, and if you wanted size at center, Nesbitt was your next best option. And if there were going to be other teams that could have taken him, obviously prior to you at 22, and maybe you couldn't get up to 14 or you couldn't get up to 13, and so you end up making a deal, oddly enough, with Pittsburgh, all right, it might look like you reached a little bit, but by like 3 or 4 spots. Now, if you want to go to somebody else's big board that said, oh, he was the 24th best player, and now you've drafted him, 12 spots earlier, all right, you can get worked up about it. But before you crush the Jack Nesbitt pick, ask yourself one question. Did I watch any Jack Nesbitt games this season? Before you trash the pick, although many people already have, before you in earnest continue to trash the pick, ask yourself the question, did I watch film on Jack Nesbitt? Or did I just watch some YouTube clips? Or did I just watch some highlights on Twitter and decide that I didn't like the pick? Or did I see a few highlights, look at a couple of mock drafts, see that they seem to agree in some way that 12 was a little bit higher than expected, and just formulate your opinion based on the opinions of others? Chances are, many Flyers fans who openly, very boldly decried, oh, what a horrible pick. I almost guarantee you none of those people have watched Jack Nesbitt play. Again, I haven't either. But I'm going to be open to it. I'm going to be open to the idea. And by the way, they were like, oh,
Well, Jack Nesbitt, he might only ever become a 2C.
good, that's fine. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but like, there's not a 1C in the system right now. At number 12, you're certainly not guaranteed to get a 1C any season. A 2C, if he's like a legit 2C, almost like a 1A or like a 2+, right? That's a pretty damn good value at 12. And by the way, I would argue it is still significantly better value than what you probably would have gotten at 22 and 31. Now that could change, right? Maybe the Flyers could have gotten better value at 22 and 31. But I'm very much of the opinion that you get the opportunity to take two swings on players in the top 12 of a draft. I'd rather that than you kind of taking a flyer on somebody, especially at 31, and then like very hit or miss at 22. Claude Giroux was there. Yeah, I get it. There are anomalies that are drafted in the 20s that turn out to be exceptional players. I would call Giroux an exceptional player, especially given what he was surrounded with. And I know that I triggered a lot of the people with the Giroux pillows last night when I just pointed out that he re-signed with Ottawa and you're not going to win a cup there. And like, put the family first. I can't blame him for putting family first. But like, you're not going to win a cup there. It's okay. But like, if you can find somebody at 22 who ends up like leading many of your franchise's all-time stats and will probably be certainly will be inducted into your team's Hall of Fame and maybe has an outside shot at making the actual Hall of Fame, that's great value at 20 or 22. It's certainly not far from a guarantee that that's going to happen. So I thought the Nesbitt pick was okay. It didn't blow my socks off. It didn't make me lose my ever-loving mind. Some people, I think, got a little bit too worked up in the moment and didn't have a whole lot to go on themselves. We'll see what he looks like at Dev Camp, where I believe Snow the Goalie will be. I believe that we're going to have some more of these people on. We talked to Nesbitt for a few minutes on draft night. We talked to Martone for a few minutes on draft night. I think we'll be talking to a few more of those people, so you have to stay tuned over there. That was a good pick. Like, all things considered, I'm here for it. All right. I kept saying, like, we're going to fly through comments, and then we go off on these tangents. Let's see. Raymond Supper says, I'd like to tune in 10 years from now and see 2 new cup banners. It'd be great. I think that can zoom out for a second. Okay, I want you to think about the Philadelphia Flyers right now as currently constructed, right? I want you to think about the Philadelphia Flyers who have a potential generational talent in Matvei Michkov, who have all-star talents like Travis Konechny and Travis Sanheim on the blue line, although they don't have like a true number one defenseman right now. I want you to think about those guys. I want you to think about that next wave of players, the Forsters, the Tippett's. You probably put Cates and Brink, like understanding that they're bottom 6 forwards, but they're here and they're under control for a good long while, and it's going to be okay. Think about those guys. Think about Jamie Drysdale's bounce back at the end of last season, especially. You can think about Cam York, whatever you think about him, and Emile Andre, and some of the other young defensemen and a few other young wingers that they have coming up. People are going to be talking about Barkey and Bonk and Bump. Now you've added Martone, who I can't imagine is going to play a lot in Philadelphia in 25-26, but like probably has a path here in 26-27. You have this guy Nesbitt that you've added. You got a ton of size in Amico, which we'll get to in a little bit, but like they drafted for size this year. When's the last time that you felt that good about having some elite talent, having that next wave of guys, and having a couple of dudes who like might end up being the best player in their respective drafts? Like, there's a non-zero chance that Matvei Michkov has a better career than Connor Bedard. There's a chance. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm certainly not saying, like, put all your money on it. There's a chance. There is a chance that Porter Martone has a better career than any of the centers that were taken above him in this draft. Will he be better than Matthew Schaefer? Who knows? If Schaefer becomes a 1D, probably not. But, like, you've now had 2 guys fall to you that were probably top 3 talents that fell to you at number 7 in Mishkov and 6 in Martone. That's the kind of luck you need. And then you had a big ballsy move where you pushed in a few of your assets. You went up and you got a guy that you think has a 6'5" frame and could ultimately be a meaningful center for your team in Nesbitt. Pretty damn good. You used a bottom 6 forward, a 4th round pick next year and a 2nd round pick this year to go out and get a guy that probably will be your 1 or 2C this year in Trevor Zegras. I mean, I don't know, guys. I have a hard time being down on the team. I think that they've had a hell of a 10 to 14 day cycle here. Goalie is really the thing they have to improve. We'll get there eventually. Let's see. Landro says the 12th pick Nesbitt is a work in progress, but has great opportunity to develop into a second-line center that has size, toughness, and hockey IQ that you win with. Correct. Crypto Cowboy says Porter Martin will bring the Flyers much joy. Correct. Adam Graff says Ekblad making less money than Sanheim, who played very well last year, is beyond a joke. Taxes. Kenny Jones over on X says your draft coverage was spectacular. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for supporting the show. Do greatly appreciate that. Let's see. Jay also points out nobody wants to leave a dynasty in the making. Correct. Like when you have the chance to win 3 cups in a row, you're going to take a little bit less money to try to keep that team together if you can. Zacho says Nesbitt will be a unit if he develops into a 2C. You have to hope. I know that there are people who are kind of like burned from like Isaac Ratcliffe and Sam Moran being big bodies that didn't develop into what you wanted them to be. But just because they didn't work doesn't mean that the big guys they drafted this year, many of them were big. You can't just like rule them out now because you've been burned in the past. Adam Graff also says NHL needs to implement a luxury tax like MLB. If ownership wants to spend, they're allowed, but the state tax argument is legit. I don't know what they have to do, but the state tax thing is going to be an issue when your teams are good. I know that Bettman tried to make the case that like, oh, in the past, it never really helped Florida before. Didn't help Dallas before. Didn't help Vegas. False. Vegas, by the way, Pietrangelo. Multiple major surgeries on the docket. All the best to him. Hope he gets back and is able to play again. That was a hell of a news hit over the weekend. Vista Vibe 360 says, excellent show on Friday, boys. Thank you. Let's see. Jim G asks, obvious question. Since they didn't draft a goalie, do they go all in for one in free agency? It's going to be free agency or it's going to be a trade. I still think that Thatcher Demko, who I brought up on this show, was it a month and a half ago, 2 months ago? I think that could be a realistic target. Again, you have the connection with Tocchet playing in Vancouver. The guy was a Vezina candidate. Like the guy played really freaking well 2 years ago when Vancouver put up over 100 points on the season. So, yeah, I think it's entirely possible. Could he be the guy? I don't know if there's a free agent out there that you get really excited about. I don't think Alex Lyon's that guy. I had Jason Martinez on the show last week, I think it was. And he's like, he still talks to Lyon, goes back and forth with him. He's like, I don't think that's what's going to happen here. I don't think that's going to work. Jamie asks, why did the Flyers pick Atlantic City for their location? Genuinely curious. I don't know. So there was the thought, right, that why didn't they just do it at Wells Fargo Center? If you saw what the Islanders did, the Islanders had a carnival down on the floor in their arena. And then as soon as James Higgins got taken by Boston, you saw them all kind of flood to the exits. The Islanders had a great draft. Absolutely great draft. They probably had the best draft, which is easy. But you got Aitchison and Schaefer, who could develop into your top pair, which is bananagrams. They didn't get Higgins. There were all those rumors going into the draft that they made the trade of, what the hell's his name? They traded a defenseman who's going to be an RFA. Dobson. They traded Dobson. They got 16 and 17 from Montreal. And then there were the rumors going around that they were going to trade up to number 4 to Utah. And it didn't happen. And Higgins fell and they didn't get him. And then the Islanders fans whined and cried. Let's see. Linda Joseph says, getting Martone was great, but I loved what the Flyers did early in the second round. Also, how mad were you that Montreal got another Russian that you wanted? They have Mishkov envy. That is 100% true. Zarkovsky was a guy that the Flyers definitely had scouted. They wanted. They were very interested in. I honestly thought they were going to try to take a few of those second-round picks and try to get back into the end of the first round to get Zarkovsky. Maybe they thought that, again, a lot of teams get iffy on drafting some of the Russian players that are under contract. And maybe they thought he was going to fall, and then they got jumped, and Montreal went up and took him. And it was a bummer. But what can you do? Derek Lentz asks, any love for Royal Farms? Bit underrated. The chicken's good if it's fresh. If the chicken just came out of the fryer Royal Farms is very good. If it's been sitting for a while, not so good. I do like the potato wedges, though. Stir & Co. over on YouTube asks, any chance we get a goalie other than Jake Allen? I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like. Demko to me is the guy that like you kind of keep an eye on. But then he's also going to need a contract at some point in the not too distant future. Joe Fisher says Martone played a bit with Nesbitt in school. Nesbitt also said the Flyers were the better PA team. He said that on Snow the Goalie. Both of those things. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. Ford says, still no Ford shout out. Hey there, Ford. Ford wants me to text him because our kids are going to play on the same soccer team. Holding out there. We'll see. Rock Flag Eagle says the whole beach thing helps about staying in Florida. I think it probably does. Derek Lund says, any word on when Flyers development camp starts? I heard that the word was supposed to come out about it this afternoon. I actually texted the Flyers earlier because there are a bunch of things that we were talking about trying to do with them for development camp. We're trying to do a bunch of like interview stuff and like kind of give you a better look at and insight into dev camp. I saw Anthony put out that it's supposed to happen Wednesday to Sunday. To my knowledge, the Flyers have yet to actually announce that. It's Monday. You would think that if dev camp's going to start on Wednesday, they either have to announce it like later today or at the latest like tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning. Because otherwise, like, I mean, you want people to come out to dev camp. You want people to go out and meet these players that they just drafted. You want to feel really, really small as you stand next to them. So apparently Wednesday to Sunday is the plan. Now, I can't imagine they're going to do anything with dev camp on Friday with the 4th of July, but who knows? Tony Louis says, I wish York was arbitration eligible. He'd be in for a rude awakening with the number they'd hand him. Yeah, that is probably true. Let's see. Chris Freed says, most of the folks commenting on the Flyers draft picks were experts on the bombing of Iran last week. I've seen none of those picks play, so I have nothing to say. That's a smart way to look at it, Chris. Let's see. Oh, and Amadeo says about Peltier not getting a qualified offer. Could just be keeping a spot open for Shabanov, which there's a chance. Let's see. There was some more stuff over here. Adam says they could be trying to pry Kyra from St. Louis. He's clearly on the market, is young, under cost control. Depends on what the assets are going to be. The one thing that it certainly feels like is that the Flyers do not want to part with any of their picks next year. And for good reason. Like, I think the Flyers are going to make the playoffs next year because they're going to address goalie. While I think the Flyers are going to make the playoffs next season, until you get halfway through the season and you see how your team is performing for Tocchet, you probably would be making a mistake in trading your first-round pick because anything can happen, right? Like, you get a couple of injuries and all of a sudden things bottom out and your potential lottery ticket to go up and get this generational talent in Gavin McKenna, if you hand it over for a guy who, like, I don't know, is going to play on your second line or maybe he's going to be like a second-pair defenseman, it's not going to be a good value. So I guess I get it. Let's see. Michael Sirkin asked about the goalie. I think we touched on that now. Let's see. Vineet Singh says, it's crazy that after getting Zegras and Martone last week, along with our haul in round 2, I almost forgot about Lashenko. Is that good or bad? I think it's great. Okay? Let me be clear. Lashenko. He might develop into a really good player. I have no clue. Okay? It was about a year ago. Hilferty, Briere, and Keith Jones came on Snow the Goalie, and they talked about, I think it was Jonesy was the one who said that Lashenko, body-wise, strength-wise, speed-wise, putting it all together, reminded him of Brindamore. I was like, well, that's pretty freaking high praise, right? I have no clue what Lashenko's going to be. I think that what all of this, like when it all comes out in the wash, I think it would have been a mistake for Lashenko to not be guaranteed a spot on the team going into next season, but this feeling that, like, if he didn't make it, it's a failure. The Zegras move helps because there's that cascading effect. And now, if you're a fan base or if you're the front office and you're thinking about how the fans are going to react to stuff, if your choice is Lashenko plays in the NHL, but he plays on the 4th line, or he goes back to Guelph for another season and continues to develop there, and maybe you make him a late season call-up, that's probably the better path. Now, the problem is, like, is he really going to develop at Guelph? I don't know. But would I necessarily want him to be up here and maybe struggle at the NHL level? Like, I didn't get any feeling at the end of last season, especially with the Phantoms, that he was going to be ready for the NHL. But maybe he blows everyone away in camp. And he pretty much makes it undeniable that he belongs on the team. And in that case, it's a little bit of a different situation. Let's see. Chris asks, it's 90 and humid. Why are you wearing a hoodie? My office is in the basement. It's always cold down here. That's pretty much it. Let's see. Michael Sirkin said McQueen did pick to wear 95, which is hilarious. Like Lightning McQueen. I think he's going to be a good player. Let's see. Corey Pryman was very high on Nesbitt, says Vinit. Thinks he will blow up this year at Windsor. Entirely possible. And then Chris says, Russ in full homer mode. You guys know me enough to know. I'm not like one to carry the water for the team. I think they had a really good draft. Vinit also says, Alex Appleyard's analysis is fair. As he looks at guys who only scored a point per game pace and what they become in the NHL, the odds are against him being anything more than a good third liner. We'll see. We will see. If he becomes Adam Lowry, which is what Nesbitt said he wants to play as, and Schaefer said unprompted what a beast he was to play against, I'm all for it. I mean, there's going to be a high compete level with Nesbitt. And if this dude is going to play up to his size, it could be a great pick. I'll also point out the fact, Nesbitt, when he was on our show on Friday, and we asked, hey, is there any possibility that you knew going into the draft the Flyers had interest? And he goes, no, I had no idea they had any interest in me. The Nesbitt pick to me seemed like a very off-the-board pick in that they probably thought center up until they got Zegras, and then the Martone thing fell into place. And Anthony put out on Twitter in between the first and second round, so I guess it was, Saturday morning, that he talked to somebody who was in the war room who said something to the effect of they were fucking pumped when Martone was still on the board at 6 because they thought Nashville was going to take him at 5. Once they picked a winger there, it seemed almost a lock that they were going to take a center somewhere in the rest of the first round, and then they traded up for Nesbitt. If McQueen had been there, would they have traded up? I would think so, yeah. Cole over on YouTube says the Union. That's as much trash as WNBA. Philadelphia's getting a WNBA team. Cole. I'll also point out, this is from my bachelor party, which feels like an eternity ago. When was that? 2014. Good God. So 2014, I remember this. So at the bachelor party, I remember we had really good seats. I think we were the Sons of Ben, who I have a love-hate relationship with. And we were like, we had good seats. And we were walking around and we were looking for food and maybe some beverages. Maybe we'd been at this game for like 7 or 8 hours from the parking lot because there used to be a really great tailgating scene down at Subaru Park. And I just remember going to the window and saying, yeah, it's my bachelor party. And I was like, do you guys have any seats that are closer? Like, what's the upgrade? And the Union hooked me up. And we ended up sitting in those chairs, those folding chairs, right behind the goal, like where the players are warming up. And so like the second half of the game, we got to watch from that level. It was a lot of fun. That's like a great all-time memory. Let's see. Jason Franklin says about Nesbitt, 2C would be the best case. Amadeus says Edmonton re-signed Bouchard. Okay, I guess that's not too much of a surprise. 4 years, $10.5 million per year. Ooh. Jason Franklin says, getting a Hagens, Eklund, or Martone Nesbitt, I would have rathered the Hagens duo. I could see that. I threw out the idea, like, if you had been able to get Hagens and Jackson Smith was on the board at 12, there are going to be some that are going to argue that maybe would have been the better way to go. We won't know for a few years. That's the difference in the NHL, right, versus many of the other leagues. It's going to take a while until we see these guys actually get into the NHL and decide if they can show out or not. Amy's here, says joining late. I really enjoyed the draft coverage. Thank you, Amy. Let's see. Peter Tom Willis over on X says great mix of size, speed, and skill. Yes, skill in our organization. It's a good feeling. Again, I'm saying, like, come back to the feeling of, like, when's the last time you felt this positive about a Flyers team going into the season? It might not be about their ability to contend this year, but the longer-term outlook, you have to feel better about this team. Certainly than you did at any point in the Chuck Fletcher years. Probably better than you did at any point in the Ron Hextall years. If you want to go back before that, I mean, there were a lot of years where Giroux was the number one player on the team. They had Voracek, they had Simmons, and a whole bunch of not much else. Did you really feel great about those teams and their long-term prospects? Probably not. Let's see. Purple Crayon says the inverted perception that teams pick incorrectly because mock drafts said differently is so absurd. I agree. Dave Quinn also says, don't forget, they have a lot of money to spend in the next few years as well. Let's see. Amadeo says Demko is re-signing in Vancouver. Did it happen? Did it happen and I missed it? That'd be sad. Oh, yeah. Closing in on a contract extension that'll keep him in Vancouver. I missed it today. All right, so Demko's out. I don't know what they're going to do with goalie. It'll be okay. It's going to be fine. Maybe. Maybe not. I thought there was going to be a chance they'd try to trade for him. Woof. Okay. Let's see. Ryan Reese is okay with Demko being gone, by the way. Says he's injury prone anyway. There are some injury concerns. Bus Camper says, love the draft. Martone was my guy, even though he wasn't a center. Big guy in front of the net with great hands. Something his team hasn't seen in a while. 100%. Let's actually go there. And let's go to Martone, because I feel like we've really passed over the lead here, which is the Flyers ended up with arguably the third best player in the draft. And I think that that's like one of those things that we absolutely have to chat about. Although I keep seeing more of these comments popping up. Unholy Hairdo says, I love how people base everything about a player solely on how many goals they score, nothing else. Some people talking about putting Lashenko down or not. Vinit says he's got excellent hockey IQ and passing capabilities. His floor is a just okay 2C. If his floor is that would imply that he has 1C potential, which I don't see, but it could be. Jim G asks, does this mean the Bobby Brink experiment will be over? No, I don't think so. Okay. I want to get to the number one pick. Okay. Zoom out about 2 weeks ago. Let's go back. About 2 weeks ago, it seemed as though the Flyers were going to get their pick of whatever center was left at number 6. So everybody kind of knew Michael Misa was going to go at 2. They figured that Frondell was going to be gone, although there was a chance San Jose was going to get weird and take Frondell, and then maybe there'd be a feeding frenzy for the number 3 overall pick. And if somehow Misa fell to 4 with Utah, you'd almost guarantee there was going to be a feeding frenzy. So you knew Misa, Frondell, Desnoyers was probably going to be gone. There were rumors about Brady Martin jumping up on boards. O'Brien was also going to be there. But then you had Schaefer was going to go first. So it felt like no matter what, the Flyers were going to get a center at number 6. Now, if you remember, they went into the season, or they went into the draft lottery with the 4th best odds of getting the number 1 overall pick. They got jumped twice, once by the Islanders, once by the Utah Mammoth. Felt kind of like a gut punch. And in a weird way, if things go the way that it certainly seems like a lot of people think it's going to now, the Flyers might have actually lucked out by moving down 2 spots. Because if they had remained at number 4, high probability they take a center. And if that had happened, would they have traded up from 22 to 12? Would they have taken a defenseman? Could they have taken a Jackson Smith? Could they have taken an Aitchison? I don't know. Maybe. But go back 2 weeks. The team had a massive hole at center. And they had a massive hole at center for the upcoming season and beyond. And they had no one really internally who was going to be able to fill that hole. Unless you were very bullish on what Jet Lashenko was going to be and that he was going to come in and maybe be your 3C and that you were going to really hope that Couturier could be your 1C with maybe some reduced minutes, but he'd be your 1C and maybe Cates would be your 2C, which is putting a lot of pressure there. So before the draft, the Flyers go out and they acquire Trevor Zegras for Ryan Poehling, wonderful bottom 6 forward, 45th overall pick, second rounder, one of the 4 second rounders they had in this draft, and a 4th round pick next year. And all of a sudden, while there were some tempered expectations, all right, they want Zegras to play center. There's a chance he's going to play wing. His most productive time in Anaheim was as a center. Okay, fine. The belief was the Flyers are going to give him every opportunity to play center. We had Tocchet on, and we had Zegras on the Snow the Goalie Draft Day show, which, again, you can go find on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We had both of those guys on. Zegras talked about wanting to play center. Tocchet talked about wanting to play Zegras at center. It very much seems that they are aligned. Zegras is going to play center. He's going to have every opportunity to succeed at center. What that essentially did was say, all right, we know for a fact then that Couturier, Cates, and Zegras are going to be your top 3 centers. And then whoever's going to be your 4C, it doesn't really matter. If Lushenko blows you out of the water, maybe he becomes your 4C. Not sure that's a great role for him. Do you then put Cates at 4C and Lushenko 3C? Whatever. But it gave you at least a stopgap, right? It at least gave you something solidified down the middle of the ice for the upcoming season. And then he's going to be an RFA, so presumably longer term. Hell of a lot of skill. If he can be a little bit more of a sound 200-foot player, could end up being a massive deal for this team. They solidified the center position, and so as of 2 weeks ago, it would have seemed insane that the Flyers could have taken Porter Martone. In fact, everybody that you talk about, right? Everybody that you talk to leading into that draft before the Zegras trade said, oh, it's going to be a center. Without a doubt, it's a center. Martone might be the best player on the board at 6, but they're going to take a center because they need centers. They get Zegras. And then the whispers start to come out. Martone could be in play. Now, if you remember, 2 weeks ago, I had Adam Kimmelman on the show. Raved about Martone. Martinez was on the show. Raved about Martone. No matter who you talk to, 6'3" winger, legitimate upside, and many believe not only has like top line potential, but could be a star. We're not just talking about, Porter Martone is going to be, a top line winger on like a bad team where like somebody has to play those minutes. No. In the time leading up to the draft and then coming out of the draft, there are certainly people who believe in the Flyers organization and around and outside of it that Porter Martone could actually be a star, not just a guy, not just he's a top 6 forward, it all depends, star. So now you zoom out and you say, okay, you've got Mishkov, who has the highest upside of anybody on the team. You now have this kid Martone, who, while I don't think he will play significant minutes for the Flyers this season, maybe he makes the team out of camp, right? Gets to play the 7-8 games and then goes down. Or maybe, like Lushenko did last year, or maybe he's a late season call-up, unless he blows your socks off and he's with the team all year, which I would find kind of surprising, but who the hell knows? 6'3" winger, Mishkov, smaller guy, totally different kind of player. You now are pretty damn solidified. You could have 2 studs on the wing. Zegras, I'm not going to tell you is a bona fide 1C or is going to develop into a bona fide 1C, but he's got the vision. Taka came on the show and was like, hey, forehand and backhand passing, not going to compare him to Draisaitl, but like probably one of the best backhands from a creative perspective outside of Draisaitl. Very high praise from the coach. There is a belief that this forward core has the ability to go to another level. And so you look at Martone and you go, all right, if he doesn't play for the Flyers much at 25-26, is it a failure of a pick? Of course not. Because what we do know is Schaefer maybe has a chance to play in the NHL this season. Maybe. There's still a chance that New York looks at it and says, we're going to let him play 1 year within the organization. We're going to let him play elsewhere for a season. And then in 26-27, Schaefer's going to be on the Islanders. Entirely possible. Same thing might happen with HSN, although that might be 2 years out instead of 1 year out. They feel very confident in their guys. The centers in this draft, whether it's Misa, Frondell, O'Brien, Denoye, Higgins, there seemed to be no belief anywhere, not a single soul. Prognosticators, pundits, scouts, nary a soul seemed to believe, oh yeah, of those like 5 centers, 2 or 3 of them are going to be in the NHL this season. Absolutely not. Now, is it possible that a team gets desperate or they want to try to like drum up some interest in the team and they're going to roll out their young center for the first like 7-8 games of the season and then maybe if he impresses, he stays? Sure. Possible. But it felt like if you were going to draft a center in this draft, that guy wasn't going to play for you this year. And he might not even play for you in 26-27 because he's still going to need time to develop. With Martone, there is a belief that if it's not this year, 26-27, he has a legitimate path to playing here and to being an impact player. You think about like what Mishkov was able to do at age 19 and then turned 20. You think about what Mishkov was able to do in his first season in North America, in the National Hockey League, playing for a not great team with an absolutely putrid power play. On a good team, on a respectable team with a even remotely competent power play, Mishkov probably has 30 goals a season ago. He's going to take another step this year. Everybody on this team is going to take another step. And if Zegras ends up becoming the guy that the Flyers have hoped for a few years when they've been, kind of testing the waters on a potential trade with Anaheim, if he ends up becoming the guy that a lot of people believe he could be, that sets up Martone in a big way. Maybe not this year, but next year. That's huge. Again, think about all the bad teams we've had to suffer through. Think about all of the piss-poor squads that have had to go out on that ice at Wells Fargo Center and have underwhelmed. Like, you set the bar low, but holy shit, it somehow got worse. Now you look at this team and you say, there's legitimate upside here. There are legitimate stars in the making on this team. Now, I don't think they're going to be in the lottery again next year unless they go out and acquire somebody's pick. I really don't think the Flyers are going to be in the lottery. So you're not going to have a shot at Gavin McKenna. But what you will have is a young nucleus to actually build around. And everybody around this organization keeps pointing to 2026. We have a lot of money. 2026, we have a lot of money. There's a lot of money. Did we mention? A lot of money. The Flyers are going to get really frisky next offseason. They have now fortified their ranks. They have now added a ton of size. They took, 9 guys in the draft? I think all but one of them is like 6'2" or taller. Bananagrams. The size on this team is nuts. And Amico's 6'6"? I think was he the tallest guy they drafted? Like, it's absolute lunacy. This team got bigger. Now, did they overcorrect? Did the Flyers, did they pass up on best player available because they wanted to add size? I don't know if I'd go that far. But, Carter Amico's 6'6". Was he the best player available? Some say yes. Will he ultimately be that guy? I have no idea. Did I watch Jack Murdoch? No, I didn't. But he's another massive body. He's another big boy. They went for size in this draft. We'll see if it pays dividends. Just because you follow the Chip Kelly methodology of big people beat up little people, it's not a guarantee it's going to work. It's not a guarantee that this is going to be the best draft ever. It doesn't mean that this team is all of a sudden going to compete for a Stanley Cup in the next 2 years. But they're certainly on their way to being a respectable team with legitimate elite upside. At least some players, positionally, elite upside. And for a fan base that's had to deal with a bevy of bad teams and very poor talent, this is probably the most exciting team that we will see take the ice in a decade. Let that one sink in. Amadeo says only 6 players drafted in the first round were below 6'1", I believe. I mean, that was one of the things they were saying. There was the could have been an overcorrection. It was man, you watched Florida with their size, and now all these GMs started going after bigger players. Again, was it the right call? Is it going to definitely prove to be a guarantee that it's going to work? No, of course not. Could it work? We'll see. Zach O says, with wingers like Mishkov and Martone, you may not need a star 1C to win a cup. I still disagree. I still think that ultimately you're going to need a legit 1C. Imagine if they were able to go out and get a guy next year, Connor McDavid. Imagine if they were able to go out and get a legit 1C in free agency in 26. Zegras is your 2C and Sean Couturier is your 3C. Cates is your 4C. It's pretty damn good up the middle. Just saying. Unholy Hairdo says, as much as I'd like to see Martone crack the lineup, I'd love to see him do a year in college. If he goes to college, right? If he doesn't make this, if he ends up in college next season, I think he's going to absolutely destroy fools. And it's going to be a blast to watch. An absolute blast. Unholy also mentions, I remember seeing Amico last year mocked in the first, every draft I saw. Hopefully he works his way back and demolishes the opposition. Dude is big as hell. 6'6". Look, nobody's saying that Amico is going to become a legit number one defenseman. Nobody's saying that he has to develop into being a top pair defenseman. But at 6'6", if that dude can develop into a solid second pair, big body that can play on the PK, can be an absolute terror. Yeah, almost be like a Zdeno Chara, where the stick is just unbelievably long. It fundamentally changes everything. Just throwing it out there. Okay, now, really quick. I think that's it for the Flyers talk for right now. We'll see if I hemorrhage people, because it looks like we're at, 130 people or so across both both YouTube channels across the Russ Joy Show and the Joy Media YouTube channels. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, subscribe. Liking the video really does help legitimately. You can leave comments in the live chat. You can leave comments after the fact. That also helps the channel a lot. Really quick, Philly stuff before we head out, because we're at the hour mark now, and I want to make sure that we're, apping out of here because it's almost dinner time. I think I can smell my wife making dinner right now because she is an absolute saint. She had these kids out and about all day while I was working. She is a saint. Ranger Suarez is a guy who doesn't get enough love, even though it feels like people have kind of gone back to loving Ranger Suarez. There was a time at one point this season where people were going, all right, well, is Ranger really going to be able to be the guy that he's been? Could he really be like a number 2 starter again? Could he bounce back to that? He's got a 1.19 ERA over his last 10 starts. He's been an absolute menace to society. He has been an absolutely dominant pitcher as part of what is the best rotation in baseball right now. And I mentioned earlier in the show, might be the best rotation the Phillies have had since 2011. Remember, that was the 4 aces in Average Joe. That was Halladay, Lee, Hamels. Remember, they went and got Oswalt. And then Average Joe, who we love, hit a home run in the World Series, en route to winning the World Series. Good on Average Joe. You take all of that into consideration, right? You think about all of it. This rotation might be better. This rotation that has Zach Wheeler, who I listen on Phightin Words. Bob was talking about the fact that, is Wheeler even better than Halladay was at his peak? Remember, Halladay didn't have a very long run here in Philadelphia. When they got him, he was the best pitcher in baseball. Right? He was, and he ended up winning a Cy Young here. He won a Cy Young in Toronto. Halladay was incredible. Wheeler has been as incredible as Halladay to some extent and has been here even longer. Wheeler's been incredible. Suarez, stud. Christopher Sanchez, stud. Nola, not a stud. And Nola's also been injured. If Nola could come back and have absolutely no pressure on him, and he's like your number 4 going into the playoffs, pretty damn good. We were talking about this the other day, but could Ranger Suarez or Christopher Sanchez end up getting moved into the bullpen for the playoffs? I don't know how you could take either of them out of the rotation at this point. Just want to go over Suarez's last, 10 or 11 games? 7 innings, no earned runs. 7 innings, 3 earned runs. Ooh. 6 2/3, 0 runs. 6 innings, 0 runs. 6 innings, 1 run. 7 innings, 2 earned runs. 7 innings, 0 earned runs. 7 innings, 1 earned run. 7 2/3 innings, 1 earned run. 7 innings, 1 earned run. Guy's a stud. There is nothing right now that Ranger Suarez can't do. If he can stay healthy, and you can close out this season with this rotation being this damn good, it will go down as the best rotation in Phillies history. They're that good. Now, the problem is, the lineup still stinks. The problem is that the lineup still comes up small in big moments. And were it not for the fact that the Phillies have this incredible rotation that just cannot be touched right now, you would be having a lot of very difficult conversations about the lineup. Max Kepler has been an abomination. Now, I said all offseason the Phillies needed to add another actual bat to the lineup. They needed one. I didn't think they were going to be in on Juan Soto, but I definitely thought they were going to do something. It's like that meme, poking somebody with a stick, do something. I thought that the Phillies knew they needed another bat. They needed another outfielder that could, play every day. Maybe it wasn't going to be a center fielder, but they needed another outfielder. And they certainly needed another bat in this lineup to help when a couple of these guys go cold. Kepler last year slashed 253, 302, 380. This season, he's down in all metrics. 209, 300, 377. And things got even worse over the weekend because Max Kepler came out and said over the weekend that the way that this team was kind of sold to him, the way that his role was kind of sold to him was different. He felt like he was misled by the Philadelphia Phillies. He felt like, this is a quote from a story written by Matt Gelb. The biggest challenge for me is not playing routinely. That's the biggest challenge. Kepler was under the impression that he would. He said, I was told I was going to be the starting left fielder. As of today, he is a qualified hitter. If he were hitting incredibly, he could theoretically lead the league in batting average, right? But he's not that guy. He hasn't been that guy. He hasn't even been a remotely productive hitter. Again, he's hitting like, what did I say before? Like around 200, 209, something like that. He's been awful. It got worse, though. And I just saw this. This came out about 20 minutes ago. And we'll give credit. So I see it's over on the 97.5 account. So we'll throw it to them really quick. Rob Thompson had to address the media. So Kepler's comments came on Thursday. And here's what Rob Thompson had to say about 20 minutes ago. He said he's had some conversations with Kepler. Quote, the comments that he made, I think, have a little bit been blown out of proportion because he told me basically what he was trying to say is that he likes to play every day. It's frustrating when you don't. All right. Once again, Rob Thompson goes to bat for his players. You kind of know that's what he is. He's a player's coach. He's a guy that will stand up for his players. I'm sorry. Max Kepler isn't that guy. And Max Kepler is not the kind of guy that has produced in this city for long enough to be able to get away with complaining about his playing time. He's not that guy. And so the fact that he felt comfortable enough to call out the organization in public, nay. And as a 209 hitter, he can hit the bricks. He can go. Now, the problem is they don't really have anybody that can take a spot. They don't really have anybody readily available in the minors. And are you going to call up Justin Crawford and be like, all right, go play the outfield, buddy? Like, I don't think so. No. And it feels like, by the way, with Justin Crawford, they almost, not that they don't want him to fail in the minors. I think they were kind of waiting for him to like maybe not be as hot as he's been. And so then they could be like, oh, well, you know, he's still trying to develop. There are a lot of things going on about how Crawford's hits in the minors, a lot of them are kind of like weak grounders, and then you get up to the major leagues, that's not going to work. We'll see. One thing that we do know, Kepler has not been good. Kepler has not been great. Kepler has not even been mediocre. He's been below mediocre. And if he wants to try to get things going in what is a contract year for him, he might need more consistent playing time. But in order to earn that playing time, he's got to play better than he has. And right now, there isn't really much of a path to doing that. So all the best to him. I don't want to see anybody fail. But man, to come out publicly and essentially say that you were lied to with what was offered to you, not great. Not great at all. Let's see. Timeout says, getting in here late, going to start the show over now. Happy 4th, Russ. Not sure you'll do another show before then. I will. I'll be back. Don't you worry. This won't be the only show this week. Jim G says, bullpen is pretty bad too. That's also what Ray Polina says. Bullpen is awful and you don't have Alvarado for the postseason. That's also very true. I mean, it really is. That was another hole. And Jordan Romano, not doing it. Not doing it for anybody. Jerry Martin says, crazy. Anthony Santander would look like a great addition, I think, to the lineup. Peter, by the way, Peter K says, Russ, there's now a Buc-ee's in Virginia. I saw it's outside of Richmond, west of Richmond off of 81. Oh, don't worry. I've looked into it. I've thought about whether or not I need to like get in the car and drive down there. Don't worry. Jerry Martin also said, dude's a clown. Get out of here. At least be classy like Merrifield last year. Admit you suck and you're down on yourself. So Ford says, Ford is tired of John Clark saying the Phillies bats are back every time they score 13 runs. They're not. Then they score 2 the next day. That's why we just can't get behind the Phillies right now. You have to be fair. The Phillies can have one outburst and then the bats go cold. But in fairness, it's been this way for a good long while. Christopher O'Donnell says, I don't blame Kep for feeling this way. He was offered an everyday role and his numbers aren't far from his career averages. It's just a horrible signing from Dave Dombrowski. Correct. K-Dub says, Ray Romano is a better reliever than Jordan Romano. That also might be true. Let's end with this. Landros 2 says, happy Canada Day tomorrow to all those who celebrate. And if for some reason you're going on vacation and you're going to miss the show on Wednesday, I hope everybody has a happy 4th. But I will be here on Wednesday. Can you believe it's the last day of June? I certainly can't. The summer's flying by, and hopefully this show helps you find a little bit of joy in your day, and it helps your week go along a little bit faster. So big thank you to everybody who joined me live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. I'll be back on Wednesday. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, and subscribe. It genuinely does help if you can. If you really want to help the channel, subscribing obviously helps. Liking it helps. When the show's over, go into the regular comment section. You can let me know something you agreed with, something you disagreed with. That's all a good signal to YouTube, and it kind of helps boost the show to people who are looking for this kind of content, which is, hopefully like good content. If you like listening to shows in the podcast feed, it's also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, and wherever you get your podcasts. But until Wednesday, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Ford gets it. I'll talk to all of you here Wednesday on the Russ Joy Show. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Talk to each and every one of you very, very soon.